Hello, welcome everybody, welcome. All right. So anyway, back to my own situation here. Happy of the 14th of April 2024 of this good Sunday reading that I'm going to do. This is going to be my way of having, home church as the home kind of feeling. Um, I know that this is a very prompting reading that you haven't heard before, you haven't seen before, you understand how it is. And sometimes I do these Bible readings, right? Sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes I do. And and if everyone wants to have their refreshment, go ahead. So this is a wonderful feeling about this reading. I'm going to show you. And this reading is You are the light of the world, Matthew 5:14. Now, this is a very prompting reading, okay? Very prompting indeed, because this is an opportunity to understand what's going to happen, and you see it as a wonderful feeling, okay? Because, in other words, you see it as a wonderful feeling, okay? Because you know what's going to happen, and this is how it's going to be. It's an opportunity to look forward to, right? And you see it as a wonderful feeling because in that note, there are things that you're trying to consider, and there are options that you must remember, and there are things that you're going to do, right? And we have times to understand what's going to happen. We have our own phases of emotions that we're having, feeling happy, feeling sad, feeling worry, feeling agitated, whatever it is. You have to think to yourself and say, am I doing the right job? Am I doing exactly what I want? And it's kind of interesting about how everything is perfect, right? Everything seems to be not perfect, right? But when you think about it, there are things that you're trying to consider, right? And there are options that you're trying to remember. And this is a almost like a A-OK situation. This is a wonderful feeling to understand about that because there are things that you're trying to consider and you're considering those options. Because this is a wonderful feeling to understand that. And there are things that you're trying to remember because there are ways that you're trying to consider, right? And this is how it is. So the Bible reading that I'm going to read you now, um, if you want to have your own Bible, go ahead, read it if you want. But I'm going to start with Matthew 5:14. I'm going to read that to you, and I hope that you enjoy this reading. So I hope that everyone will have a good prompting way of knowing what to do and what's going to happen. And, you know, you see it as a wonderful feeling, you see it as a wonderful enjoyment, you see it as a wonderful picture. There are things that you're trying to consider, right? And you see those as a wonderful feeling. You just have to know if it's a good take situation, it's the way of how everything seems to be. This is a wonderful way of knowing what to do and to see it as a wonderful, give and take situation. And this is how it's going to be. So you see it as a wonderful feeling. And you know about that as well, right? So you see it as a wonderful feeling. So you see it as a wonderful feeling, and you know about the way of how it goes, right? Because this is an opportunity. This is like a step in your own direction, right? Because there are things that you're trying to consider. There are ways that you're trying to know what's going to happen, right? Because you see it as a sequence, right? Because you know how it is, you know how interesting it seems to be, right? Because you think about how everything is going to be all graceful. So I'm going to be doing, so the introduction that I'm going to try to read you, and this is a wonderful opportunity to understand. So the salt and light. Now this is what the reading is. So here we go. All right. Here is the opportunity. It says, "You're the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You're the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do the people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand. It gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." So there are things that you're trying to consider, okay? And one options is that you think about it as a wonderful, you know, way of how it is, right? You see it as a wonderful feeling. Now, there are things that you're trying to consider, right? There are things that you're trying to, be multiplied, be skilled, be wonderful. And, this is how what it seems to be, right? Because you think about how everything is, you think about how everything was a stepping stone. Think there are things that you're trying to consider, right? And you have those options, but what the Bible is saying is that you're going to have light. You need to have good qualities to understand what's going to happen, because if you think about the dark times, if you think about how bad it is, if you think how disastrous, whatever it is, you have to think to yourself and say, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? Am I considering the options, right? And there are things that you're trying to consider, and this is how an opportunity is. So this is a way of knowing what to do, because you just have to follow the rhythm, follow your own strong ways of how it is. This is not like a fear factor. This is not how interesting of how it seems to be, but you have to improve yourself worthy. You have to know exactly if you're doing it right, if you understand about what's going to happen, because yes, that there are things that you're trying to consider, yes, that you need to understand what's going to happen, and yes, it is, but there are things that you're trying to remember as they go along. If you see it as dark and light, there are two different things, right? Darkness, you can't see anything. But if you have a flashlight, then you see something into the darkness with your light, flashlight, get it? And you see it as a wonderful feeling, right? If you have light, you don't need the flashlight, because you are into that motivation of seeing the light. Do you get it? Yeah. So you have to focus on that. You have to focus on that ability to understand what's going to happen. And there are things that you're trying to consider, and you know about that way. That's why the Bible is saying, because into that perfection is the way of how everything goes. you know it's the way of how everything is all intriguing, and everything's all right and not wrong, and you see it as a wonderful feeling, right? But before I let you all go, try to remember about how everything is, because this is a time and place for everything where you decide what's going to happen, you decide what's going to what's going on. You know, if you're having fear, if you're having anxiety, if you're feeling upset, if someone was bothering you, whatever, you have to remember to stay positive as much as you can. If you have the light, you have, the positive way. If you don't have the light, you're in darkness, right? And you have negative and negative and negative. It keeps going, right? So you have to remember that you have to believe in your own self. Seeing is believing, believing is seeing, right? Understand that perfection. Understand how it's going to be, interesting of how it goes, right? So this is a wonderful feeling to understand what's happening. The story is, interesting of how it is. It's the way of how everything is all, you know, beautiful and everything is, right? So you see is a wonderful feeling because this is like a season's greeting, right? It's the way of how it goes and the hope that everything seems to be. So understand the message about the salt and the light. Figure it out. Understand about this whole entire Bible reading that I just read to you. Think about that. Think about the chapter of Matthew 5:14. Look up in the Bible, read it, and see if you understand that. Because it does follow the rhythm. It does how it seems to be and knowing about how it goes. And you see it as a wonderful feeling. Because you have to remember that everything has to be all, you know, interesting of how it goes. But everything has to be all centered and everything is all peaceful. And there are things that you're trying to remember, and there are things how you can do whatever you decide to do. Only look at look at yourself and say, am I doing this right? Am I not doing this wrong? And you see it. You see it as a wonderful feeling. So before I let you go, pay attention, understand how it goes, and I'll see you next time. So this is a wonderful feeling, and I hope that you understand about the reading. So give it a like, give it a comment, and I know that this is a wonderful feeling. Understand that this is a wonderful aspect, and this is how it goes. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful Sunday to you all, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye for now. Really, bye for now. Bye.